Welcome to the session number 11, SQLite Miscellaneous. Here we will see SQLite Analysis, SQLite Views, Triggers, Date and Time, dealing with the indexes, and last is SQLite Transaction. So beginning with the SQLite Analysis, now table or column name can be renamed temporarily, which is called as alias. The use of the table alias means to rename a table in a particular SQLite statement. Renaming is a temporary change and actual table does not change in the database. So here we can see there are two syntaxes. One is table alias. So select column 1, column 2 from table name as. So as is the keyword that you will use, and after that the table name you can define it as a temporary table name, and then you will lay your where clause. Similarly, for the column alias, you can do select column name as. So for example, we'll see later on. So for example, the name of the column is employee ID. You can say as ID from so and so table. So from table name where condition. So let us see how to assign the alias to the table as well as its column. So for example, if we observe here, what we have written is select m.album ID, g.genre ID and g.name from music as m. So consider music as a name m and genre as g. So name for the table genre as g, and we have also set a limit to 25 since it is a big table. So now this is the alias being given to the table. M and G is the alias that is being given to the tables, and that is referred to as m.album ID, g.genre ID and g.name. So name will be the column that will be extracted from the genre table, and album ID is the column that will be extracted from the music table. Similarly, genre ID is again the column that will be extracted from the genre table. And now we have given the alias name, that is short name. So instead of typing the entire name, we can now refer to the tables with the short name for this one particular query. And now you'll be able to see that album ID, genre ID and name has been populated from these two tables, and there will be no change in the name of the table in your original database. This is just a temporary name. Now let us see how to give column the alias name. So for example, over here select m.album ID as album version. So album where. So now the column name album ID will temporarily be named as album underscore where. Similarly, g.genre ID will be named as gen where, and another table from genre name will be available as genres underscore name. From music as m, so music table will be considered as a name m and genre as g, and we again have set limit to 25. So if you see over here, in spite of album ID, the name has appeared as albumware. In spite of genre ID, name has appeared as genware, and in spite of name, the name has come as, column name has come as genres name. So now this is again the temporary name that is being given to the columns. So this is called the aliases. Now let us focus on SQLite triggers. So triggers are database callback functions which are automatically performed when a specified database event occurs. For example, we can create a trigger for any update in the table, for any delete in the table, for any delete in the entire table, for any delete in the row. So trigger will automatically keep the log of the event that has happened. So for example, today I insert any data into the row, there will be a logger table that will reflect the change in the table. We can insert date and time, we can insert the information as such as update keyword after the event has occurred. So triggers basically fire whenever there is any event that has happened inside the database and to a specified table. So let us see how to deal with the triggers and generate triggers for any event. So for our example over here, we are creating a one table with the name logger, which has got log as one row which is integer and name which is got a text. Okay, so now this is the table that will keep the record and will get entries whenever there will be any update. So now let us see second example. Now since we already have a logger table already been created on the system, so now let's develop a trigger. So command is create trigger logger. So now create trigger, but where you have to keep the data for the trigger. So in a table logger, when after the insert on table 2 has happened, so table 2 begin. So now we'll begin what has to be done whenever there is the update. So now begin statement will specify, so insert into logger. So in this table do insert values 1 and update. So whenever there is any update or insert into statement, any changes in the table 2, do begin. What you have to begin inserting the values 1 and update into the respective columns. And then since this is procedure that we have begun, we have to end this. So we have to write the end statement at the end of the create trigger statement. And then we have to see what happens. Now we are inserting the value in table 2, that is Mumbai and 13. We are inserting these values and let us see whether really there is any trigger that was being fired when there was insert into statement. So let us see, and to see it we need to implement and check select statement, select asterisk from. Now we want to check logger table, and there we see yes, there was update that has happened in the table 2. So trigger was fired when there was insert into statement for table 2 was raised. Trigger can also be dropped using a drop trigger statement. So for example, over here we are trying to drop a logger statement. So drop trigger logger and then hit enter. Automatically, now since it was earlier been deleted, so it is showing no trigger such as logger that exist. But if in case you want to drop the particular trigger, you can type drop trigger and the name of the table which is been using as a logger or a trigger. So indexes are basically lookup table that database search engine can use to speed up the data retrieving process. Index acts like a pointer in a table. An index helps speed up select queries and where clauses, but it slows down the data input with update and insert statement. Indexes can be created or dropped with no effect on the data. Now index should not be created when the table is small or when it has got too many null values, but what any other case we can generate the indexes. So let us see the practical approach of generating the index. So syntax is create index, the name of the index and on the table name. So let us see how to do it in a command prompt. So let us now understand the practical approach towards the creating the indexes. So command is create index and the name of the index. For our example, we have kept it as a cust ID. On the name of the table, that is invoices items, and in the bracket we have to mention the name of the table on which we have to implement the index and generate the index. And once the index is being generated, now to make use of generated index, for using it in a search criteria, we have to say select asterisk from the name of the table invoices items which is indexed by. So we have to use a keyword indexed by the name of the index which is cust ID, and then we can lay the criteria where customer ID is greater than 12 or you may say 15 and then hit. So you'll be able to see the table that is being generated. So this makes index procedure bit faster and search procedure bit easier and faster and efficient. Next is SQLite alter table command. So alter table command modifies an existing table without performing a full dump or reload of the data. Table can be renamed using alter table statement. New columns can also be added into the existing table without disturbing the existing structure of the table. So alter table to rename an existing table. So we can look at the syntaxes. So alter table database name you can mention dot table name, and then you can write rename to whatever name you want to give it to. Alter table to new column. So what you can do is alter table database name dot the name of the table, and then you have to write add column and the definition of the column, that is the type of the column, the name of the column, and all those details need to be filled to alter the table. Let us look at the practical approach in the command prompt. So for example, if we wish to rename the table name, we can write alter table and the name of the table, which is the original name, for example table 2, and we want to rename it. So we will write rename to and the name of the table that you want to assign it to. So for our example, I have changed it to new underscore name. Now for our example, we have one table music which I want to rename it to as music type all. So now alter table music, rename it to what? Music type all, and then hit the enter. And now even if you wish to enter a new column to it, you'll be able to do it using the alter table statement again. So now music is being renamed as music type all. If you want to be sure whether or not, you can say select asterisk from music. So since music is not something that is existing, it will show you the error that no such table exists. And again you can say music underscore type all, and then you'll be able to see yes, the newly named table is being shown with the output. And in case if you want to edit new column or add new column to it, we can also do that. We can also add a new column using alter table, the name of the table music type all, and the keyword is add column new music. Once you hit enter, now if you will see the schema of music underscore type all, and if you wish to see whether or not new column is being added, you can type select asterisk music type all, and I have limited it to the 10 since it's a big table. So now we can see the third column new music is being added, and since there is no data to it, so null values are there. That is the reason. So now this is the way we can alter the table. We can add column, we can rename table, and so on. So coming on to the next topic, that is SQLite views. Now SQLite views are virtual tables. A view contains all rows of these tables and also columns of all the tables. But views are not something that allow user to modify the data in an organization when it is really restricted data and all the people are not allowed to access the data. View can be provided to just view the data, but any changes in the views cannot make any changes in the actual data. View can be used to generate a graph to analyze the data, but views cannot change the original form and original data. So views can allow its user to structure the data way, find it in a natural way, restricting access to data so that user can only see limited data instead of a complete data, summarize data from various tables so that it can be used to generate reports. So that means views are generally the copy of a data. It's not the original data, but it can be used to analyze the data, to generate report, to generate graphs, and so on. So for example, to generate a view, you can say create view, and the name of the view we are keeping as emp underscore view as. Now how you want it to be generated? So I want all the data that is available in employees to be available in this view. So select asterisk from employees, and then you hit enter. And if you want to retrieve the view, there is the same procedure. You write a select asterisk from employee underscore view, and we'll see that. And once you write select asterisk from employee underscore view, the result will be generated. It is the copy of the table employees. If you want, you can furthermore purify the table or apply filters in the where clause to make changes in the views, but views are generally the temporary table. Any changes in the view will not be reflected in the original table employees. Next is dealing with the date and time. So SQLite date and time. So there are certain functions. For example, date function returns the date in the format YYMMDD. Time returns the time in HHMMSS, so hours, minutes and seconds. Date time is the function that will return both the things, date as well as time. Julian date, this returns the number of days since noon in Greenwich on November 24, 4714 BC. And STFR time, this returns the date formatted according to the format string specified as the first argument formatted as per formatters. So here in the table you can see what are the time strings formats and the given examples one by one. And also you can see the modifiers that are available in the SQLite to modify the date and time. And these are the formatters: %D, %F, %H, %J, capital J. So according to this you can keep adjusting the date and time. Let us now look at the command prompt to see how to get the date, today's date. So select date, and in the bracket in the quotations it is been returned as now. So the value that is returned is 20173 and 20. So this is today's date, 2017, 3rd month and 20. This is the date being returned. To get the time you can say select time and in the bracket 1200 as a local time. So now the time value is being returned as 17:30:00. Next topic is SQLite transactions. A transaction is the propagation of one or more changes to the database. A transaction is a unit of work that is performed against the database. Transactions are units or sequences of work accomplished in a logical order, whether in a manual fashion or by a user or automatically by some sort of a database program. For example, creating, updating or deleting a record from the table, then transaction on the table is performed. Now there are certain properties of the transaction: atomicity, consistency, isolation and durability. So now there are three ways to control the transaction, that is begin transaction, commit and rollback. We will see one by one each transaction. So to begin transaction, we have to first make a use of a keyword begin, and then we have to instruct what we have to do: delete from the table name genre, where genre ID is equal to the 15, and then we have to throw another instruction, commit. So to commit this operation, as soon as we'll press enter, and now if we'll try to see the table, say for example select asterisk from, and then if you see the 15th number ID is being deleted. So this is how we can perform the transaction. Well, as far as using a rollback is concerned, we will see over here. So we see begin, delete from genres where genre ID is equal to the 18. Now we have written rollback at the end. So for example, by mistake, if we have provided the wrong ID, for example, I was not intent to delete 18th number ID, but still I could pass 18 as the number, I can still write rollback at the end. So you can see in this given table that 18th number ID is still present in the table. So this means rollback avoids any changes, or it is undo to the any change.